Hi, it's Kirby Sommers, and I welcome you to the Epstein Project podcast. Today, I'm going to be discussing the photographs of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and President Bill Clinton. And I'm going to tell you and explain how mainstream media is intentionally not giving you information that's right under their noses. But first, I want to take a moment to thank you guys for your incredible support, for becoming members of my newsletter, of my Patreon. And oh, did you know that I was on Shaun Attwood's show the other day? I'll leave a link to that. I also want to thank my sponsor, MedSpa.clinic. Amazing products. They're all natural and they ship everywhere. So whether you live in the United States, any city, any state, or you live in the UK or you're in Australia, they will ship. So take a look at their website, medspa.clinic. Amazing stuff. Well, these photos that came out, it's really interesting how they're kind of leaking these pictures of Bill Clinton um, very late in the game, I think. Um, so the photographs were leaked. It was technically because Jeffrey Epstein had made a donation to the renovation of the White House, a very small donation, frankly. I think it was just $10,000. And he and Ghislaine Maxwell were invited to a private tour of the White House. What the mainstream media people are not telling you is that Ghislaine Maxwell already had a very close friend working with Bill Clinton in Bill Clinton's White House. Um, and for that, I'm going to go back and discuss Robert Maxwell, her father, for a little bit. So, Robert Maxwell, as you know, was discovered to be a spy. The person who began to poke around to make that discovery was Seymour Hersh. And then the two people who wrote the book about Robert Maxwell, Israel's super spy, were Gorton Thomas and Martin Dillon. They did a really good job, and initially, uh, nobody wanted that book published. And then Maxwell died, and then there was this big thing where Isabel Maxwell was able to bribe someone. She got a copy of the book. She got on a plane. She went to Israel. And what happens? Alan Dershowitz, when the book comes out, they make sure that, first of all, they make sure that almost nobody gets this book. There was almost no publicity for the book. But in addition to that, Alan Dershowitz writes a scathing review about this book. So at the time, the authors, Gorton Thomas is no longer alive, but at the time, the authors, Gorton Thomas and Martin Dillon, didn't understand, well, why would this attorney, Dershowitz, why would he write a whole article talking about how horrible the book is? And then they discover later on, oh, I see, he's connected to Epstein, who is now connected to Ghislaine Maxwell, but it took them some time to find out. Well, Robert Maxwell's family, including Maxwell's attorneys and the people around him, the Mossad, did not want people to know he was a Mossad agent. So that's why they wanted to suppress it. However, the person that knew that he was a Mossad agent and acted as his go-between with Israel and with the prime ministers was Samuel Pisar. Pisar. Samuel Pisar. That name is important for many reasons. Samuel Pisar was Robert Maxwell's most trusted advisor. He was one of his attorneys, and he was the guy that connected him to the people in Israel. When Robert Maxwell, on November 5th, 1991, before he was either pushed or fell off the Lady Ghislaine yacht, um, the last phone call and the last person he spoke with was with Samuel Pizar. So that is how close these men were. You know, he was away on like a couple of day vacation. He wasn't feeling well, and he was expected to come back to London and resume all kinds of activity. So he really was not suicidal. I mean, I think we can all agree. But Samuel Pissar was the last person that spoke to Robert Maxwell. All right, well, Samuel Pissar uh, had two children. One, a daughter, her name is Leah Pissar. Well, Leah Pissar worked at Bill Clinton's White House. So by the time um, that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were in Bill Clinton's White House, shaking hands and pretending they're there and they're getting special dibs, Ghislaine Maxwell's friend, Leah Pizar, is already in Clinton's White House. So I'm going to try to explain to you who Leah Pizar is and what her role was and what my suspicion is. So to do that, I will have to bring up the name Mega. Okay. And to all of you, Mega has a certain connotation. For me, it has a different connotation. In 1997, someone uh, in the Washington Post wrote an article about a spy named Mega. And this spy was a mole in Bill Clinton's White House. The article quickly disappeared. Oddly enough, it's back. It's back. But it reads in part, according to a source who viewed a copy of the NSA transcript of the conversation, the intelligence officer speaking in Hebrew said the ambassador wants to go to Mega to get a copy of this letter. The source said the supervisor in Tel Aviv rejected the request, saying this is not something we use Mega for. And then a reporter followed up, and a National Security Council, a senior official, declined to comment. White House spokesman Michael McCurry, who was traveling with President Clinton in Mexico, also refused to comment. And so the only evidence that the FBI intersected was the phone call referencing a January 16, 1997 letter that then Secretary of State Warren Christopher wrote to Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat. And so Mossad wanted that letter. They had a mole in the White House. It was not supposed to be known who the mole was. An interesting thing happened was that instead of Clinton allowing the FBI to continue their search for Mega, the code name for the spy that is embedded in Bill Clinton's White House, what does Clinton do? He calls off the search. He calls off the search. Now, finding a spy, this happened sort of like this is, if you remember anything about the Jonathan J. Pollard spy case, about the um, that very famous spy case, I believe it was in the 50s or the 60s, where this couple, um, Roy Cohn sent this couple to the electric chair because they were stealing nuclear secrets and sending them off to the Soviet Union. Ethel Rosenbaum or something like that. I don't have the name in front of me. But spying within the United States, and especially inside the White House, that is a big deal. That would have been the biggest scandal of the century. Um, there were several reincarnations of the word mega, and it's in one of my Epstein Project newsletters. This chapter, where I go into specific details, is also in my book, Jeffrey Epstein, Predator Spy. There were several reincarnations of the word mega because they wanted you to forget there was a spy whose code name is Mega. So I will say that Samuel Pizarro's daughter, and hold on a second, I just have to find my notes. Samuel Pizarro's daughter, yep, here are my notes. Was, in fact, I'm going to read it. She worked at the State Department and as communications director at the National Security Council, so NSC, right? During the Clinton administration. I believe it's my opinion, and I've done enough research to believe that Leah Pissar was the mole whose code name is Mega inside of Bill Clinton's White House. So that when Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell are shaking hands with Bill Clinton, Robert Maxwell's attorney's daughter is already inside the Clinton White House. So even if I'm wrong about her being Mega the spy, she's still working at his White House. Which no one is talking about. Not one single mainstream media is talking about it. Let me take this a step further. Leah Pissar has a stepbrother. His name is Antony Blinken, Tony Blinken. Does that name sound familiar to you? Well, it should. Antony Blinken was selected by President I have a block with his name because he's connected to my abuser, but he's connected to President Joe Biden. Joe Biden just made him the Secretary of State. So we have the two children of Robert Maxwell's attorney, confidant, go between to Israel, working in the White House. One worked with Bill Clinton, and Antony Blinken is now the Secretary of State. So I just want to just add that when Robert Maxwell fell off the Lady Ghislaine on November 5th, 1991, who did Betty Maxwell call in her most distressed state? She called Samuel Pissar. And what did Samuel Pissar do? He told her, don't worry. He is the person who made all of the arrangements with Israel so that Robert Maxwell could be given a hero's farewell and to have him buried where he's buried, which is, it was attended, it was the funeral fit for a hero. And that was arranged with the help of Samuel Pissar. Okay, well, I'm gonna, even just talking about this upsets me to no end because it shouldn't be me. I don't have any journalistic training. I don't have any spy training. It should not be me. Just a woman. Yeah, I was a sex slave for one of these super predators, but it should not be on me to tell the world current events and who's related to who and who shouldn't be in the White House. I just feel that it should just not be up to me to do this, except that it seems like I'm the only one that me and a few other people we have to dedicate all of our time to this, to just digging for the information because you're not going to hear it from mainstream media. In any event, I'm going to end this before I get even more upset. And I say, hey, please continue to support me, and you can do that by buying my books, by making a contribution to my website. Remember to become a subscriber, okay? Become a subscriber. You get to hear all of my podcasts and information that sincerely you're not going to get anywhere. So, once again, it's Kirby Sommers for the Epstein Project podcast, and I thank you for listening. We'll do this again soon. Bye.